Ethan Rivers was 17 years old, a boy with big dreams and even bigger excuses. He wanted to be an artist, but his days slipped away between endless naps, scrolling through his phone and saying, "I'll do it tomorrow." He had the talent. There was no doubt about that. His sketchbooks, though half-finished, showed skill that amazed his teachers. But Ethan lacked discipline. He convinced himself that life had plenty of time, that effort could always wait until another day. He lived with his mother, Lisa, in a modest apartment in the heart of the city. Lisa was a nurse, often working double shifts at the hospital to keep the household running. Her love for Ethan was boundless. Every evening when she returned home, tired and drained, she still managed to ask about his day, look at his drawings, and remind him gently that talent without hard work doesn't last. "Son," she would say softly, "dreams don't walk on their own. You have to move your feet." Ethan always nodded, smiled, and promised to try harder. But the next morning, when his alarm rang, he would roll over, pull the blanket tighter, and tell himself, "Just 5 more minutes." Those 5 minutes became hours, and the day was wasted again. Lisa never complained about his laziness out loud. She knew her son had a good heart, and she hoped one day he would realize his potential on his own. But quietly she worried. She saw the world outside moving fast. She saw Ethan staying still. One rainy evening, Lisa came home with her hair damp and her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. Instead of heading straight to the kitchen to cook dinner, she sat down on the couch with a small wooden box in her hands. Ethan, curious, asked, "What's that, Ma?" She looked at him with tired eyes but a faint smile and said, "Something I've been keeping for you." Slowly she opened the box. Inside lay a framed certificate. Ethan S. name was written across it in bold letters. First place in the state art contest. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Months ago, one of his teachers had submitted his artwork without telling him, and he had forgotten about it. The results had come. The certificate had been mailed to their home, and his mother had kept it safe. He hadn't even realized he had won. Lisa held the frame gently, almost as if it was a piece of her son's future. "You did this, Ethan," she said softly. "You won. Even without trying, you created something so good that it stood out. Imagine what you could do if you gave your full effort." For a moment, Ethan didn't know what to say. His chest tightened with a strange mix of pride and guilt. Pride because he had achieved something, guilt because he hadn't celebrated it, hadn't valued it, hadn't even told his mother about it when it mattered. He saw the joy in her eyes, joy that came not from the certificate itself, but from her belief that her son was capable of more than he realized. That night, Ethan lay awake in his bed. The sound of the rain outside tapped against the window, but his mind was too loud to sleep. He thought about the certificate, about all the sketchbooks he had left unfinished, about the blank canvases stacked in the corner of his room. He thought about his mother, who worked long hours yet still found time to encourage him, who believed in his talent even when he wasted it. He thought about time, how much of it he had already let slip through his fingers. When the morning came, Ethan woke up earlier than usual. He walked over to the small frame on his desk, ran his fingers over his name, and whispered, "I owe you effort, Ma. I owe myself effort." He cleared the dust off his easel, pulled out a fresh canvas, and picked up his brush. For the first time in months, maybe years, he painted with intention. The colors flowed, and the hours slipped by, not wasted but used. By the time Lisa came home from her shift, Ethan was still at work, the smell of paint filling the room. She paused at the doorway, eyes widening at the sight of her son hunched over a canvas, lost in creation. Days turned into weeks, and something inside Ethan had shifted. He no longer stayed in bed till noon. He no longer said tomorrow. He used each day, even if just for an hour, to create something. Sketches began to fill the walls of his room. Paintings dried in corners. Poems scribbled on loose sheets piled up on his desk. He started entering small competitions, not because he cared about winning, but because it pushed him to finish what he started. For the first time in his life, he felt the satisfaction of completing things, of turning dreams into reality. Lisa noticed the change and often smiled quietly to herself. She didn't pressure him, didn't boast. She simply supported him, making sure he had enough paint, brushes, and paper. One afternoon, she came into his room while he was working on a large piece, a painting of the city skyline at sunrise, each brushstroke alive with color and hope. Tears filled her eyes as she stood silently behind him. When Ethan noticed her, he turned, smiled, and said, "Thank you for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself." Lisa hugged him tightly, whispering, "I always knew you would find your way. I just had to wait until you were ready." Ethan realized then that time is not infinite. It slips away quietly, and once lost, it never comes back. He regretted the hours and days he had wasted, but he also understood that regret could be transformed into action. Every new sunrise was a second chance. He couldn't change the past, but he could change what he did with the present. Months later, Ethan's artwork was displayed at a local gallery. Lisa stood proudly in the crowd, watching strangers admire her son's paintings. Ethan looked around the room, feeling a mix of nervousness and pride, but more importantly, a sense of fulfillment he had never felt before. For the first time, he wasn't just a dreamer, he was a doer. And so, the boy who once wasted his days in bed learned the most valuable lesson of his life. Time is not something to kill or pass. It is something to use. Each hour is a gift, each moment a chance, and each effort a step toward the life you want to create.